CQ Parks in the air. CQ Pota, CQ Parks in the air. Whiskey Alpha 7, Papa Bravo Echo, going CQ Parks in the air.
What's up everybody, WA7PBE here, and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 picks for Pota Radios for 2023. Now this list is not going to be all inclusive. There's going to be radios out there that you might find that might be perfect for Pota, and it's not going to be really focused around base station radios either, like you would think with the IC7300 or the 991 by Yaesu. Instead, these radios are going to be more about being portable, something you can stick in a backpack, maybe like a Pelican case with a battery and that kind of stuff. You know, get out from just the parking lot and go into the park a little bit. That's what I enjoy doing, and I think a lot of people also enjoy doing that. And let's face it, it's not always fun to be lugging around a big, chunky radio all over the place. So, stick around and stay tuned and see what my top 5 picks are for 2023 for Pota Radios. Before we jump into the list here, let me remind you that I do have links below for all the radios I'm going to be talking about, and also I have links to my Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee. If you find this interesting, you want to help support me, that's a way you can do it. And also another reminder, at 500 subs, I'm going to do a live stream the Tuesday night after I hit that goal, and we'll do a giveaway for a QRZ1 and a couple other cool little gifts, so stay tuned for that. So my number 5 pick was actually one of my most difficult picks because I had a solid top 4, but putting the number 5 was a little bit tough because there's a lot of really good radios out there, let's face it. But my number 5 pick definitely has to go to the Lab 599 TX500. That you could see here on the Ham Radio Outlet webpage, and again I'll put the link in the description below. We have the Lab 599 here, and TX500 that is. And you can see it's a very compact, portable, and it says to be a rugged radio. It says it's water resistant and dust resistant. Of course, it's not waterproof. There really is not many radios in existence, I think, that are truly waterproof, unless we're talking about marine VHF, and that might be a little bit different. But it does 160 to 6 meters, and a lot of people that I know have it love it. I don't own one personally because before the conflict broke out in Ukraine, these things were about $800, and now they're about $1,300 retail, as you can see here. And that's really what puts us at number 5, even with the 10-watt output, because of supply issues. I think overseas there's some places that still don't even have them in stock. And as you can see, Ham Radio Outlet only has them in stock in 2 cities, and that's Milwaukee and San Diego. Of course, you can have them shipped. But, it's difficult for me to put this anything higher than number 5, as long as the supply issues remain and the price remains so high. It's going to be our second most expensive radio on this list. To have disposable income and you want a portable, rugged radio, this might be a really good choice for you. But for a lot of newer operators and maybe younger ones like myself, $1,300 is a hard buy. So I kind of give it a pass for this year. Hopefully next year they can fix their supply issues. For my number 4 pick, I think this is going to be the most controversial pick on this entire list. Mostly because of the issues this radio had at its release. But now, to my understanding, most of those issues have been resolved. And it's probably one of the most portable radios on this list, as well as one of the cheapest. and that's the Xiegu G106. Now, as you can see here on the Radio Oddity webpage, we have the Xiegu G106, and it tells you it is a 5-watt QRP radio, and it says support FT8. What they really mean by that is that you can buy what's called the DE19, which is mentioned somewhere here on the webpage. Again, the link will be in the description below. But with the DE19, it gives you a quick and easy interface to a computer to use digital modes such as FT8. And at 5 watts, you'll do just fine on FT8 from the park. And with its form factor, you could get into some pretty interesting portable setups. Really, the biggest drawback is it doesn't have a tuner, so you may have to include that in your kit or bring a resonant antenna. But it is very low on the power draw with only 0.37 amps on standby current. It is by far one of the lowest power consumption radios on this list, and at $319, and it will probably go on sale, I would imagine, at some point too, for even less than that. It'll be an absolute killer deal, especially for a new hand that's looking to get to their first HF radio for Pota. It is QRP, so you may have some trouble, but doing Pota, you kind of find that QRP doesn't really matter, because people are actually hunting and looking for you. You're not trying to break into a pileup or something. So this is my number 4 choice. I'd like to know what you guys think about this choice in the comments below. And now that brings me to my number 3 choice for Pota radios for 2023. This wasn't a very hard choice because my top 3 are pretty easy, and I kind of figured out where to put this radio as soon as I came up with the list. The main factor is the price in this radio, and by hearing that, a lot of you are already going to know what it is. And a lot of you that own this radio would probably put it at number 1, and I wouldn't blame you one bit. And that's the ICOM IC705. Now, let me preface by saying the fact that this is at number 3 is not a knock on the radio. I have played with this radio a couple of times, and I love it. It's a great radio, but at $13.50, it is the most expensive option on this list. And for a QRP radio, that's a kind of big bill to swallow for only getting up to 10 watts. But you do get HF to 430 megahertz on there, and you also get D-Star. However, D-Star is kind of a wasted feature for Pota because a lot of D-Star does use repeaters. Although, my understanding, it is possible to use it simplex. I've never seen it done personally. If you have done it, let me know in the comments. Also, you can remote into this radio, but if we're talking strictly for Pota, that's kind of a wasted feature because a lot of people struggle or just don't have adequate internet signal in a park, or alternatively, to do Pota, you have to be in the park with your radio. So there's kind of no point to remoting unless you're running like 2 rigs at once. That would be like the one exception I would see to be using this radio with the remote feature. Because it doesn't necessarily say in the rules you have to be at your radio, but you have to be in the park with your radio. And like I said, with D-Star, it's kind of a wasted feature for Pota. But this is a great radio, like I said. I'm not trying to knock the radio. It's just the features that probably drive the price up to $13.50 are features you probably wouldn't use. But again, it is a beautiful radio, has great menus to get through, has a great interface. As you can say here, it's actually touchscreen on the front. And the 2 meters and 70 centimeters is kind of cool, but I think just about everybody has an HT laying around, even if it's just a Baofeng. Doing 2 meters for parks on the air can be tough. Unless you live near or in a city like me, a lot of people can't really get on 2 meters that much. So, is it a feature you really need on a radio? No. I also have like an alternate choice to this later on the list, so stick around for that. And let me know what you think of this radio in the comments. My number 2 choice is going to really come as no surprise to most people that have been around Pota for a long time and that know me. And that's going to be the FT891, which is this radio right here. And as you can see, it fits pretty comfortably in my hand, so I would call it fairly portable, right? Now, a lot of people are going to be wondering, well, why did you put this at number 2, Pat, if this is such a popular radio and it's such a good radio, as you say? Well, I'll go ahead and show you why right now. So as you can see, we're here on DX Engineering's website, who has the best price on FT891 right now. I'm sure you could find these on eBay for even cheaper, but if you want to buy it retail, brand new, here you go. You can get it for $639, which for a QRO rig in general is a very good price. In fact, if you need a base station under $1,000, this would be a very viable option. Now, it doesn't have a tuner, which is something you probably will need to invest in, and those can be had for as little as $100. But as you can see, it does 100 watts, which is, this is the only radio on this list that goes up to 100 watts. You know, it's considered QRO power, and does up to 6 meters, so that's pretty cool. The biggest drawback to this radio, for me at least, is the fact that it uses 23 amps at 100 watts, and on standby, which is somewhere here in this wall of text, which is actually right here, it uses 2 amps on receive. Now, if we want to be portable, this is a decent option, but what's the point of having 100 watts if you're going to have to carry around a giant battery to supplement it? That's not to say you couldn't use this with a smaller battery and turn the power down, but again, at that point, it's kind of like, what's the point? And I think it gives a lot of validity to my number 1 choice. But all in all, this is a great radio, and there's a reason why it's so popular. And that's because it's portable. You know, it's got this detachable face, so you could use it in a Pelican case of some kind with a battery setup. You know, a lot of people like it. The audio quality and filtering is great on it. It's probably actually one of the oldest radios on this list, believe it or not, and it's about 5 years old at this point. So, yeah, that's my number 2 choice. I would like to know what you guys think about that as well. Now, before I get to my number 1 choice, I want to go through a couple of honorable mentions. Some radios that didn't make it into this list for various reasons, but may find a place in your kit otherwise. And at number 1 for honorable mentions, we have the Yaesu FT818. This is a very good alternative, I would say, to the IC705 if QRP, UHF, and VHF is somewhat of a necessity for you for some reason. The retail price, though, is kind of what throws it off with this list at $649 retail. However, you can find these used very cheap floating around at swap meets on eBay. In fact, I just saw one on eBay that was like $350 on auction. Even if that thing was at $400, that'd be a great deal for this radio. If you need QRP with an internal battery, I should add, this might be a good choice for you if the IC705 is just a little too high up there in price. And another honorable mention I want to give is a kit radio. I don't really want to recommend a kit radio to people because you may not know how to build a kit radio. However, this is available fully assembled from the manufacturer so long as they remain in stock, which remains a bit of an issue with this radio as well. And that's the QDX Mini. It does 80, 40, 30, and 20 meters. It can be run off either a 9 volt or 12 volt power supply depending on how it's built, and it puts out 5 watts. This is a cool little bit of kit. If you want to go ultra portable digital, this would definitely be a way to go. It is worth mentioning though that this will not work for phase shift methods such as PSK31, but because of the popular JS8 call and FT8, FT4 and that kind of stuff, I wouldn't really sweat not being able to do PSK. This thing is available fully assembled for $149, or as a kit for about $65, not including the case. So if you're cool with building a kit, this is a little fun project to do. If you want to buy it fully assembled, that would be pretty cool too. And a lot of people that I know really like this thing and say it's pretty good fun, and leads to some interesting setups for Parks on the Air. And now that's going to bring me to my number one choice for Pota Radios for 2023. And anybody who knows me knows that this radio is probably to come as no surprise that I would choose it for number one. And that is the Xiegu G90. A small, compact, and portable HF radio that's available for under $500, and it has a built-in tuner. I mean, those features alone are hard to beat. But let me go over some other stuff that I think makes this radio a great choice, especially for new operators. So you can see here, we're on Radio Audio's website again, and they have the best price available right now for G90s at $449. Expect this price to go down in the next couple of weeks here as Black Friday approaches. I got mine on sale at $390 last year during Black Friday. And sometimes they'll have these flash bundle sales. Yesterday this was at $445. So even at $469, this is not a bad deal for all the accessories either. So these usually get sold with accessories for pretty cheap. And as you can see, it has a beautiful color screen display, and the automatic antenna tuner is what really sets this thing apart from every other radio in this list. I have trouble finding antennas that I cannot tune with this antenna tuner. That's how good I find it to be. Maybe your experience or mileage might vary, but again, I have no issue even tuning up antennas that are technically out of band on this radio. And it runs at 20 watts, which is not QRP, and 20 watts I've gotten out just fine. I've gotten out just fine on 20 watts, and with improving band conditions, 20 watts is going to be more than enough to get your signal out there and get heard. Another feature I really like about this, as you can see, you have all these buttons. So basically everything you would pretty much need to operate is right there in the face of the radio. My number two pick with the FT891. That has a complicated menu system. That's not really true here in the G90. Granted, the filtering might not be as good, and it might not be as feature rich, and it can't push as much power. That's kind of irrelevant when the other features of this radio kind of make up for that. Speaking of power, we can see here that it only has 500 milliamps on receive current draw, which is nothing, and on transmit we're only going to 8 amps max at 20 watts. So you can do a lot of damage with this radio. That is to say, you can get some pretty big pileups. I will say the one downside to this radio, the filtering is not as good as the 891, but I mean, it's fine. It works fine. It's also not super easy to use on digital modes, but I don't do a whole lot of digital modes myself, but if you do, you just have to learn how to set it up the first time. Once you get it set up, it should work every time after. I'd recommend using something other than the CE19 interface. DigiRig makes a very good interface with this radio. But again, this is by far my number one choice. If it was for one feature, it's the antenna tuner alone. The antenna tuner in this, anybody who owns one will tell you, is amazing. This radio is so good, I even used it on field day. Granted, I used it with the 100 watt amp, but it performed great. People were impressed with this little radio. So that's going to do it for my top 5 picks for Pota Radios for 2023. Do you guys have a number one pick? Let me know in the comments below. Always be sure to like the video and share it with your friends if you found it helpful and informative. And I will catch you guys in the next one. 7 3s.